Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third webinar in Webinar Week with ACREW. I see that we already have a good bunch of people there, and everybody, good morning. It would be nice to see the chat where you're all from. I'm in Palma. Peter, where are you?
I'm on the Isle of Wight in the UK.
In the Isle of Wight. And Svante, where are you at the moment?
I'm outside Hamburg in Germany.
Good. So we're basically from all over the world. And I think this is a great way during this COVID-19 period to keep communicating and to keep sharing our knowledge. I am very proud to have these amazing people with me for the simple reason that they are two of the main companies within the yachting industry, and we're very happy that they have been very willing to combine the efforts to do this presentation with us today. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Svante. We've got Peter with us. He's the Senior Vice President of Yachting and Passenger for Inmarsat. And I've learned previously that every vessel holds at least an Inmarsat piece. Is that correct, Peter?
Yes, it does. Yes, there you go.
It does. And we got Svante with us, who's the Team Leader Cybersecurity from DVGL. Svante, thank you very much for joining us. And obviously that also leads us straight to the topic. Well, the topic is not me and Joanna, but we're here as well to help you. But the topic is all about, so you think you're cyber safe. We're going to have a great session together with the gents, and Svante is going to start with his first part of the presentation. Peter's going to then take over. I think it's going to be very interesting, very appealing. I'm very happy to see so many people joining us at this moment. Please use the chat. Feel free to keep talking to us. Emma's from Groningen, Lisette from Toronto, Mira from Mallorca. We got Croatia, Manchester. We got the whole world joining us. So that's very interesting. Thank you very much for that. I think the human factor will be touched upon because now I know where you're from. I can find you, Svante. So that's probably has got something to do with cybersecurity, doesn't it? But let's not take too much time. I'll be muting myself and taking my video off. I'll be giving the stage to Svante. So please take it away, and everybody, please enjoy this amazing session.
Okay. Let's see here. Thank you so much for that introduction, first of all, and I'm really excited to be here as well. Just short to myself, I'm working in DVGL as the team leader, as Ono you said. I'm working in the advisory part of our organization, supporting our clients with assessing and improvement of cybersecurity on board vessels and for the whole organizations. I'm separate in that sense and enrolled in my classification colleagues that are doing the notations and also the ISM audits and the surveys and so on. So we are an independent part of the organization. And today I want to talk a little bit about the perspective from DNV, also the perspective of the different key stakeholders out there that are pushing this topic forward in the industry, what you can do in order to prepare yourself and advance in cybersecurity on board your yacht, and maybe open up for a few questions from your side. If I would be happy to help you answer them. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Okay, first of all, we need to have an understanding, a setting of a vessel today, and especially of our yachts. We have a multitude of different systems operating on board our vessels. It's more or less like a small factory nowadays. We have everything from controlling the vessel in order to steer it from A to B, to actually entertain the passengers and the crew on board, to communicate with the outside in order to navigate, having the right propulsion and the right power management on board. These different systems are nowadays very well interconnected on board the vessel. So these systems are talking to each other and exchanging data at a frequent pace. And also we see an increase of connectivity to the outside world. And this picture here to the left, you see how it's illustrated through a VSAT connectivity, but it could also be direct physical access to the systems on board. You can go on board as a passenger or a crew member or a service engineer and access the system with for instance, plugging it into a USB port or something else. So we have, and that's the key message to take out from this picture, to understand that our vessels today are very well connected to the rest of the world, and we are increasingly going towards a smart or even autonomous shipping in the future. What the systems are that we are interested in on board is something that you're well aware of from the office environment or at home, from your home office maybe these days, like me today, is the information technology or IT components and the IT networks on board. They can be responsible for the business on board the vessel, but also for the entertainment and communication. Then we have the so-called operational technology. These technologies are the control systems on board responsible for the critical functions that I just mentioned: propulsion, ballasting, power generation, and so on. And both systems or both types of systems are very important for the operation of a vessel. There are differences in terms of risk. If we jeopardize the integrity of an information technology system, we usually only risk the finances or reputation of the information and the asset. But if we actually have a conflict that is jeopardizing the integrity of an operation technology system, we could even lose lives of passengers or crew or someone else, a third party, or the property, the yacht itself could go lost, or the environment can be jeopardized. So it's important for us to understand that we have both types of systems, that they have traditionally different types of risk associated with them, and that in general as well, that we see in the industry today that OT is fairly much more immature in the sense of cybersecurity than it is on the IT side of things, also on board the vessels. OT has not been the focus for security purposes for that many years so far. So we typically see that on board vessels, the IT network and the systems are well protected, but the OT side has weaker protections right now. Let me move to the next slide. What is then specific to yachts? And I want to talk about a little bit, first of all, what are typical targets that we talk about in the yacht segment. First of all, the passengers themselves can be taken at ransom in the sense. The systems on board can actually be losing the integrity of them, and the system can be malfunctioning or unavailable, and therefore the attacker can ask for a ransom fee in order to unlock the system and get your vessel operating again. Also, theft from these passengers could be taking credit card information or other business-related information, even industrial espionage, where actually we see also national states being active, trying to penetrate into highly interested business deals also on board yachts. And of course, the privacy could be jeopardized, someone stealing the data that is communicating back and forward from the ship to the shore stakeholders. What is making then the risk actually a little bit higher for yachts and in comparison to other types of vessels? First of all, we see that there are more people on board that has, in that sense, a higher net worth or value. Typically, target attacks are directed from hacking societies or associations. In that sense, they work really like professional experts in networks. They try to focus their attacks and their efforts towards where they can benefit the most. So obviously, if they have higher values, they were going to be more interested in your type of vessel. Also, on board yachts, we see a higher complexity than we might see on a traditional bulk carrier from the 90s. And also the internet connectivity is quite substantial and giving us a lot of remote possibilities to also access the systems. What is mitigating factors, what is actually making it and you guys in a better position than most other vessel segments, is that your systems are in general well segregated between each other. So the different networks, the IT, the OT systems are usually well protected with firewalls or other sophisticated means in order to stop the attack from spreading from A to B. Also, there is usually high budgets available to actually implement proper cybersecurity on board. The vessel itself is smaller, and therefore it's the consequence can be lighter for a specific scenario. And also we see less turnover of crew, and also more thorough screening of the crew members that are on board. So therefore we can see that also the inside job scenario is decreasing than in comparison to many other ship segments. One trigger, and this is something we have seen in the last couple of years now, is that the incidents are actually increasing out there today. I talked about OT and IT already. In both senses, in general, we see an exponential increase of activities and incidents related to this. We see a very broad difference. There's different dimensions to these incidents. They originate both in IT realm and also OT. They can start on the IT side and spread into the OT. They can start in the office, or they start on board, and then they continue spreading into the other systems. They can be targeted, and they can be untargeted. One of the most famous untargeted attacks were the NotPetya attack against Maersk. This was a non-targeted attack, and Maersk was actually just collateral damage. For the targeted attack was directed to the Ukrainian tax system. And since Maersk had using the Ukrainian tax system software, they also got this infection into their networks, and they spread it throughout the organization. But there has also been reports of targeted attacks, such as, for instance, GPS jamming and spoofing, jamming where you just lose the signal or the signal freezes, but spoofing where someone is manipulating the signal, and your real position is different than what your GPS signal tells you on the display. I could go on and on, but I'm going to leave it right here. Interesting is maybe also to mention that we see there are different purposes of these attacks, and I will get back to that a little bit later as well. Some of the purposes is, as I said, in ransomware directions, losing the availability of the systems, but some could also be stealing information, so loss of confidentiality of these system data, and be using that in order to build up a more sophisticated attack against your organization, or stealing it for other purposes. Another trigger for our industry to actually take this serious is that we have quite a lot of talk about smart shipping and even autonomous vessels in the future. And I think this is really an opportunity for everyone. There is an opportunity behind getting more digitalized. We can have more remote operations. We can get remote support for any type of operations that we would like, both in normal operation but also in emergency response. Performance optimization could be the case. We can get better maintenance. Our service engineers can remotely connect, and we can get monitoring data evaluated and making our operation more effective. But we need to remember that this is all dependent on these automation, software, connectivity, integration of systems, and so on. And in order for us to harvest these benefits, we need to think about cybersecurity as well. The only way to do this is to actually protect our systems in a proper manner. That's the only way to benefit and harvest these benefits as well. So please remember this. And then we have the last driver, and that is something we have been talking a lot to different stakeholders in this industry, to different ship segments, but I'm going to talk to you about this as well. This IMO driving this topic as well. Already in 2017, they came out with a resolution stating that whoever needs to use ISM code, whoever that is applicable for, you should now also not just take care of traditional risks on board, but also cyber risks, because the ISM code states that all risks should be included, and this resolution makes it very clear that also cyber risk belongs to this. Associated with this resolution, they also came out with a circular, and the circular is a guidance, very brief guidance, but still talking a little bit about the scope, what should be taken care of. And as I said before, They state that both IT and OT systems are relevant for the protection, so it's something that you need to have cyber risk management about. IT system, in the sense, as I said before, more of they could be the vector of making the critical OT systems losing their integrity, and not maybe really causing life endangerment or environmental risk themselves, but actually being the vector that originates from those systems and go into the OT systems. They also talk about both intentional and unintentional threats. So both of the ones that they're targeted attacks against someone specific trying to steal that information, but also the untargeted attacks, such as Inmarsat case, and then the unintentional ones where everyone makes a mistake. That can happen. So that is a threat that is also part of this code, and it could also be an inbuilt software weakness that no one thought about before. It wasn't tested properly together before implementing on board the vessel. And lastly, they have a very clear sense of that we need to implement defense in depth principles. So it's not only enough to think about how to protect us from making sure that not an incident will occur at all, but also taking the reality at the face and understanding that anyone can actually be hit at any point of time. So we need to also implement safeguards in order to detect these incidents and also respond and get back to normal operations afterwards. So it's a whole cycle that needs to be covered. This resolution now states that the ISM auditors from January next year, they will also take into consideration when they execute the ISM audits that how you are dealing with cyber risk management as well, next to all the other risk management questions or safety management questions that they already will be looking at. So the verification deadline is the 1st of January for the next doc afterwards. I usually get this question when I'm talking to yacht segment, is who is this actually applicable for then, this resolution from IMO? And the easy answer is actually only those vessels that already apply the ISM code. Those vessels that will have an ISM audit, for those vessels this is relevant. And for you who are not really well familiar with this, it's actually stated already who that is applicable for. It states in the SOLAS Chapter 9, and it's regarding ships that are in commercial operations. You need to be classified as a passenger vessel, so there has to be more than 12 passengers on board. The size also matters, so it should be above 500 gross tonnage. And then, of course, it could also be an addition. We see a few different flag states that also have additional requirements, more than the IMO already have defined. And some flag states can say that also above this, we would like to see that further vessels should also be included in the ISM scope. But my general recommendation to anyone that has already one vessel that this applies for in their fleet, I usually say try to roll out this safety management system that also includes cyber risk management to all your vessels. Don't make several different management systems that are then it's a mess to try to follow up on, but keep to one, even if you don't have an ISM auditor coming on board and checking it. It might be worthwhile to do it on a voluntary basis anyway. What do we as DNVGL, we recommend how to approach and deal with this fact. First of all, we say, as usual, we have to assess our risk. Where are we at right now? We improve ourselves. We develop different safeguards in order to be better protected. We implement them on board and also on our onshore operation or organization. And then we get someone from the outside to verify that this has been properly done. Also, there are also 3 dimensions to cybersecurity, and it's important to pinpoint. I could list a long list of different incidents that I have, or near misses that I have seen on board, being an on-board auditor and tester. But usually it originates from 3 different dimensions: the people, processes, or technology. So the people awareness, their understanding of their task, their responsibility, and training and qualification is key, but also, are they getting the support they need in order to execute the operation? Do they have the right checklists? Do they understand the policies and procedures already implemented? Are there also requirements towards third party and contractors in this management system? And naturally, we need to also rely on technology. But it's only through actually covering all 3 of them that we will have the best protection concept possible. We're talking about cyber risk management, and I usually tell my clients that it's the easiest way of dealing with this is actually taking your already existing risk assessment approach and implement this also for cyber risk. So first of all, identify what are the systems that you like to assess. So first of all, these critical systems are relevant for your safety and environment on board. So ballasting, navigation, and so on that we saw. Now, unfortunately, in this slide are missing, but the next phase is here, the likelihood and consequence assessment. You define a set of, you monitorize these and say, okay, the likelihood could be a 4 and the consequent maybe a 5, and then you plot this according to your risk matrix in the 3rd step, and then you have your initial risk level. I recommend you to use the common risk assessment matrix that you have, and also the rating scales that you are already using for other purposes, and do not make a separate one, because then you cannot compare the risk that well between the different types of risk, safety risk and cyber risk and so on. And then implement or develop good measures. They could be those 3 types of measures that I just mentioned: people, processes, and technology, in order to mitigate the risk and keep the risk at an acceptable level. So you might ask now, is there nothing specific towards cyber risk assessment? Well, there are definitely, and one of the key differences is how to assess the likelihood. Since the likelihood is dependent on malicious activity, motivation of the attacker, their capabilities, also the vulnerabilities of my system, and the security concept that I have, it is not that straightforward as it is usually when we talk about safety risk. We cannot go back in statistical data and make sure that we have a fairly good estimation of the likelihood. But we suggest that you use an approximation in terms of ease of access. So we are saying that the more access potential a system has, the higher likelihood it will be that someone actually connects to the system and can jeopardize the integrity of the system. So if you have remote connection to the system, if it's physically accessible, if it's interconnected with other systems, and if it's maybe on a weekly basis also requiring updates, it will be higher likely that someone actually get access to it that shouldn't have access to the system. So the likelihood can be approximated with the ease of access. And the consequence is, as I mentioned briefly in the beginning, is not only to focus on the availability of a system that we traditionally do. The availability is actually, in that sense, might be the least problematic, because availability losses when a screen turns black, or we get a warning message saying that you have a malware infected your computer, or your signal freezes. This is something that you could easily spot. You can notice this, and you can take other actions in order to keep the risk low, or this incident not to materialize into bad consequence. But if you lose the integrity of a system or data, or the confidentiality, it's quite common that actually we notice this just much later than when it happened. for instance, in GPS signal, unless you have a GPS receiver that actually have that technical feasibility also to give you that information that now something is going on that shouldn't be going on. It gives you a warning signal. You might not even notice that your GPS position is wrong, is off with a few meters. And the loss of confidentiality could cause substantial problematics when it comes to business deals or even information. You could lose credential, password information in order to get into other systems on board your vessel. So we need to assess all three different types of consequences in order to have a complete picture of the cyber risk. There's more guidelines available in this DNV I recommend a practice for you to have a look at after this webinar as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I was going to now make a poll for you to see if how interactive you are in that sense. Let me see if I can make this work. I'm gonna start this poll right now. There we go. And the poll question is, how far is your company already with the integration of cyber risk management into your daily businesses? And there's 4 different alternatives, and the fourth answer should be don't know or it's not applicable. But let's see, I give you a few seconds in order for you to have a possibility to answer, and then we'll see how this goes. Still see that the charts are moving a little bit up and down, so I'm going to give you a few more seconds. Okay, I think that is it. Actually, I don't know if you can see the results. I don't think so, but as of right now, I have actually now it's changing a bit again. But I can see in general, I can say that around about 25% is saying it's not applicable for me. No one is saying that we're doing okay, but we have still some work to do. Some 16% have just started, and the last one is that we have done basically nothing so far, or very little, is 58%, or even higher now. So I think this is typically what I can see also in other ship segments. Of course, when talking to some of them, they have had external stakeholders such as insurance businesses, or it could also be chartering requirements from oil majors or other key stakeholders that have pushed some segments in the maritime environment a little bit further. But I usually, this is quite typical to see that many people haven't even started. And but I can give you a sure confidence that there's still time. If you have to follow this requirement with IMO until the end of the year, or until the next dock audit for next year. You will have time to implement these things still. That is at least my experience. Usually this process of executing a risk assessment and doing implementation and improvements can take everything from 3 months to up to 9 months or a year. So there's still possibilities for you to get compliant in that sense, and also get improved for what is going to come. Let me go back now to the presentation, if I can manage this. Let me see, there we go. Okay. I'm going to give you just a brief example on how this could look like. And in my original slides, you could see a little bit more than I can show you right now. But we have, for instance, you can have a propulsion system on board your vessel. You have to excuse me for not being able to show you everything here. Propulsion and steering as a pod system could be one way of doing this. The first thing that you would assess is then what could be the potential consequence. The consequence could actually be grounding or collision if you lose the integrity of the system. The next one would be asking yourself, what is the likelihood? This system typically have very high connectivity as it's linked up to the outside world, where remote connection is possible. It's interconnected with other systems. It has software updates required. So the likelihood is also very high. So initial risk is in that sense quite high for this system. Then talking about what could you do potentially in order to reduce the risk would be, first of all, make sure that the separation of this system with other systems is done properly. So segregation of the system is key, not only for us a pod system, but any type of system, especially when we're talking about safety critical systems. The second one is then also to think about what kind of requirements am I putting towards my vendors? Do I actually require them to have a safe design, a secure design? Are they providing me with regular updates as required and support in an emergency situation? Do I have roles and responsibilities? Do I know, my crew know what to do in a normal operation and not to do? And also what to do, how to respond to an incident if something happens. And that would then all be recorded in the places where you can just see white here right now, and you can come up with an acceptable risk in the end. And that's the way of recording and documenting your proper risk management. The next one, improve and implement. When we talk about the ISM code, in order to get compliance here, you need to think in management system terms. So we think in plan, do, check, act in order to continuously improve ourselves. Plan in the sense of we need to understand what are the cybersecurity objectives for my vessel. It could be a little bit different than my between the vessels, but yachts are fairly similar. We need to protect both the integrity and availability of the system, but also very much the confidentiality of the data. That is not as, in comparison to other types of vessels, that is not as important normally. The confidentiality is less of a critical objective for most vessels except for yachts. Then I need to have an understanding of what is the inventory of systems and software. I need to have a complete overview of both IT side and OT side in order to make a proper risk assessment. Needing to understand how is the network topologies, how are they actually interconnected in order to make proper risk assessment. Then I go into the do format. I execute the people, processes, and technology improvements that is needed. I follow up with going back to the check. Do I actually reach the objectives that I put in? Am I evaluating myself? Do I get information? Do I do something about the incident reports and maybe the intrusion detection system reports that are coming in? Do I do internal and also external audits in order for me to identify potential ways of improving myself? And then act and execute these improvements. What is very true for cybersecurity is that we will always have to work on this, and it's not just a one-time exercise. But since we see that the attackers out there are very active, they will continue improving their tools in order to jeopardize our systems, and also our vessels are continuously getting updated, continuously getting more and more features in there. And therefore, we need to adapt and update our risk assessment in order to follow up on these changes that are continuously there. Then finally, I want to just two small slides about what we do as a major part of our company is, of course, classification, class notations. We have a few requirements in our main rules, which is also required for cybersecurity purposes, but we saw the need to also make available a voluntary class notation and also type approval for systems and components. This could be implemented for both ships in operation and also new building vessels. It's based on the international recognized standard called IEC 62443. And that's an operational technology cybersecurity standard. We have adopted it and profiled it for the maritime segment, so the requirements are easier to understand and more applicable to the environment on board a vessel. And then there is a flexible scope in that sense. The type approval is also voluntarily and can be used by the manufacturers in order to get it easier in the new building phase, maybe to get selected and being approved for the classification purposes. I'll show you the flexibility as well from our classification scope. First of all, the cybersecure, the basic entry is it's actually available now to give some assurance that you are going towards IMO compliance. There's a predefined list of requirements when it comes to the management system and people and processes and in that sense, what is it that you need to implement? But there's also a few high-level technology requirements. So proper segregation of the system, secured remote connections to the systems on board, and so on. Then the main two qualifiers, essential and advanced, they have the same scope, but they have different security profiles. The scope is already predefined to be protecting the 10 critical functions of a vessel. I mentioned them before: propulsion, steering, power management, communication, for instance, some of these. The system behind that should be protected with a set of predefined requirements. For the essential, it's about 50 requirements, and for the advanced, it's about 90 requirements. And these requirements are then in that sense higher if you go up to a security profile 3 or the advanced level. Just an example could be for profile 1 is when you try to access the system, you need to have a personalized access codes, credentials, passwords, and so on. And for the security profile 3, you need to have dual authentication. So you need to execute twice in that sense with different means in order to access the system. And they're both available for ships in operation and for the new building market. We see that for advanced level, it's more of a sophisticated vessels that are going for this for the new building industry than going for the essential scope. And the plus notation, the last one, is there to give everyone the complete flexibility. You can add or remove systems. You can also add higher security demands or lower them, and then the plus qualifier would be applicable for that class notation. Then I will just mention the last slide. We have recently published a new cybersecurity homepage where you can read a lot about what I told you today, more information there. We have different subfolders there for more information. Also a newly developed video is there for you to have higher understanding, and also an awareness video for your crew, 20 minutes long, is available for free of charge, for instance. And then you can download the recommended practice that I told you about, and also have access to our service pages if you want to have some more information on how we could support you and in developing and securing your operations. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I will give over the microphone and everything to Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Svante. I think Peter, I think Svante did a great job. Thank you very much for that first part of the presentation. And Peter, I'm giving the stage to you. And let me know if you need any help or requirements. And everybody from the chat, if you got any questions also later, please post them in the chat, and I'll make sure I ask them to Svante and Peter to make sure you get all the information required.
Thank you very much. You should be able to hear me now. I hope you can. I'm back online. Thank you very much, Svante. It was great to cover the aspect of cybersecurity. I'm going to cover a slightly different aspect to this. This is about the people side of it. I'm calling it the vulnerable. That's you and me. I have started a poll, I believe, which is, have you ever had cybersecurity training? Which is, if you could answer that one. So I am the Senior Vice President of Safety, Security, Yachting and Passenger, which is quite a mouthful and makes a very long business card, at Inmarsat in the Maritime Business Unit. So I look at security across all the sectors, but I look at Yachting and Passenger specifically in terms of our services we offer. Obviously, Inmarsat is a 40-year-old company flying 13 satellites, provides the majority of connectivity to the maritime market today, and especially a focus today now on the yachting industry. So with our new Fleet Express service. In doing that, we also have a direction towards digitalization, because we believe that's the future of connectivity at sea, and of course then the concept of cybersecurity plays a role. So we really are focused on and always have been on delivering secure communications through our own satellites, our own ground station, our own closed network, a high level of encryption all the way through. And also as a company, we're ISO 27001 security qualified to ensure that we keep everybody's data nice and clean and away from prying eyes. So I just want to take it us through today about the people side of things and how it can affect you as a person. So I need to go next. Dink. So in terms of, before we start, we kind of need to define what cybersecurity is, just for the purpose of this this presentation. The 240 slides that I'm going to show you, no, I'm only joking, it's only about 20, are all around a specific subject, which is, it will become clear. But I want to make sure that we're focused on what cybersecurity is. And you can see there, it's protection from harm to an asset in an electronic domain. And I've put down there an asset, the first one, the human being, a person. We are seeing a lot of misery, a lot of protection needed for people from cybersecurity, because we are very vulnerable. We are the weak link. We're the weak link in the way that a hacker can see us, and the way that a hacker can abuse us. So this is all going to be about an asset, which is the human being, yourselves. And cybersecurity is that process to protect us from damage or an attack, and ensure that we are always safe. And that refers back to where Svante was coming from in terms of the risk element. So what does cybersecurity accomplish for the asset? For us, we have three things that we need to protect: the confidentiality of the data. So in terms of if it's our data, we don't want to share that with anybody else. The integrity of the data. So if we create data and we want to send it from one place to another, or we want to use that data for something, we need to make sure it is secure from the original source. As Svante mentioned, GPS spoofing, that's really one of the ways where the integrity of data is compromised in order to change a characteristic and therefore compromise the cybersecurity itself. And what I'm going to really focus on today is availability. So availability of the data. If it's your data, you want to be able to get to it when you want to get to it. That's the concept of that. But if you can stop somebody having access to that data, then you are in control. And that is where a lot of hackers today focus their approach in terms of where they go forward. I'm bringing this up now because hackers are very, very kind of faceless. This is kind of not a personal crime. There is no people involved here. It's just numbers. And they will exploit whatever they possibly can. And this statistic from Statista shows the online coronavirus threat implications. Over 300,000 coronavirus spams have been detected just up to March 27th. So because this is in the public domain, it's very easy for a hacker to go, people are interested in this, people will fall for this, I'm going to exploit them. And this is a genuine issue that is going around at the moment. We have seen, as Inmarsat, 20 to 30% increase in the number of events and incidents occurring in our security operations center, primarily because of this. It's so in the public domain that it's so easy to put under people's noses and say, just click on this link. So what I'm going to talk about starts with spam and moves to phishing. So I'm going to talk first of all about generic spam. Very, very simple. I'm going to go through each one of these at a time. And then I'm going to move on to spam with details, and then spam with personal details. And spam with personal details is very much more like phishing, a targeted attack, because they've got more information about you and the way that you operate. So they can use that to manipulate what's going on. But what you've really got to realize to this is spam generates from an email server. And if you set up an email server today to send out lots of emails to genuine contacts, without registering it, it will get blocked. It's very easy for an internet service provider to recognize that kind of thing, or for a security aspect within a country to recognize it and close it down. Because spamming is so prolific. So when you do receive spam, you are receiving it usually from a hacked email domain or an email server. So if you can report it to those people where you think it's coming from, please do, because you're not the only victim of this. There are going to be lots and lots of victims who are going to receive the spam as it comes across. The first one, pretty straightforward, generic spam. We've probably all seen this. I've started the poll. I don't know whether anybody's touched the poll. Oh, no? Okay.
I think you didn't start it, Peter.
Oh, okay. You have to publish it. I have to publish it.
You have to publish it. That's it.
Oh, too many words for me. Publish. Gosh, too early in the morning as well. Okay, now we go. So it's generic spam. You've won a prize. Money is waiting. That Nigerian prince is rich. He has got lots of money. He's not going to give it to you. The lots of money he's got is from you. But what we're seeing now is today's corona advice. From the World Health Organization, you get an email saying today's corona advice to you? No. But it's easy. It's easy to spam in that respect. There's even one about an antibacterial credit card going around. If you fill in the details of this form, i.e. your name, your date of birth, all that stuff, we'll send you an antibacterial credit card. It sounds silly, but people fall for it. And the last one there is, we've hacked your device. We've hacked your device. They haven't hacked your device. This is a spam. This is going to everybody generically. It's sent out to a large number of people. The thing that's on the hacker side or the spammer side is the number of people. Where did they get your email from? That's the question you need to be asking. If you do get spam, somebody has got your email. And they've probably got that email through spamming previously, or through a breach previously, or they bought it on the dark web. So if you do receive a spam, you have been compromised, and you should change your passwords. Please change your passwords. That's the end of that one. That poll. Let's do another poll, and I'll come back to the poll answers at the end. The reset poll. So I have a poll now about spam. Wonderful, wonderful spam. And I'll publish that one this time. There we go. So that's generic spam. It's happening to everybody. If you haven't had some in your inbox, I'm very, very surprised. And the next type of spam is the spam with details. So in this case, they're saying your mailbox will be deactivated if we have your details. These are your agent's instructions. They're using the kind of a little bit of a fear factor, a little, as opposed to the you've won factor. They are saying that something, if you don't do something, something will happen. It's easy to be tricked into using this to just click on the link. So all you need to do is click on the link and you've fallen foul for it. So very, very, very careful. If somebody is saying, we'll deactivate your mailbox, that can only be the administrator or your internet service provider or whoever, but it cannot be just an email saying we'll deactivate it. We have your details. If they're saying we have your details, then they're basically saying they don't have your details because they're asking you to verify what their details are. They're pulling you into a false sense of having to reply when they don't really know anything about you. All they've really got is an email and they've blasted it out to everybody, hoping that 1 or 2 people will click on the link. And the COVID one is really, really an important one, because that link, as it's so high profile at the moment, they're using it quite a lot. Also be aware of, in this time, the free, as I said, in the generic spam, but also sometimes spam with details, because they've got some of your details, where they say, we notice you use Amazon. And so therefore you can get Amazon Prime for free for 3 months if you click this link. So if they've got some details, we noticed that you stream online. You can have Netflix free for 3 months during this COVID thing. They're all offering you something which is a little bit too much. So be very, very careful. That's not normal. People don't do that. People don't walk up to you in the street and say, by the way, you can have 3 months of Netflix for free. So be very, very careful about this. We'll go into some of the ways you can protect yourself a little bit later. The next one is spam with personal details. Now this one gets a very high rate of uptake, unfortunately, because now they are, again, don't have everything, but they've got something on you. They've managed to get some details from another breach, from let's say a hotel breach or a BA.com breach, and they've got some of your personal details. So they may know your first name, your last name, as well as your email address. They may know what your old password was when it was with, for example, an airline or a restaurant chain or a hotel or something like that. They've got something which they can use to entice you into giving them more information. So this is, we really are kind of fooled into the thinking that we have to take some action. And we have you on webcam is a spam or a phishing attack, which in some cases actually they can hack your webcam and they take a picture of you and they will send that and say, we have a picture of you and we have seen you on compromised sites. We will tell everybody on your Facebook link, because maybe they've got a link to your Facebook page. So this is a really tricky one in respects of making sure that you don't fall for it. And because the repercussions of this are quite high in all fairness. And a lot of people have fell for this one. So please, extremely be wary. Where are you receiving your email from? Always hover over the link if you're not sure to find out where that's coming from. But even an email address can be spoofed so that it looks like a proper email address. So it looks like it's coming from your boss or your agent or the captain or whatever. So be very, very careful about the motivation from it. If in doubt, give them a call. Please don't click on the link, because some of this software can also bypass traditional antivirus. Antivirus is not necessarily the right thing these days to protect your computer, because some of this is malware that's out there, and this ransomware is tweaked in such a way, and it's so new that your antivirus signatures won't pick it up, and so you can get compromised. And yes, you could just lose your data. You could have, you could pay in Bitcoin to get that data back, but you could be even more compromised. And that's what we're really building to, because they're not just necessarily targeting you as because you're not a high wealth individual, or maybe you are, but they're looking for more information so they can take it forward. Because again, if they've got your email, they've got it from somewhere. So somewhere there has been a breach and you are on it. And again, I can't emphasize enough, make sure if you do get any spam, you do change your password. And as I expected, 100% of you have received spam. That's probably to be expected. And then I have another poll, which is a little bit more controversial. Have you ever clicked on a spam email? And I'll publish that one whilst we just move on. So the next one is, I want to take you through a scenario of a spam attack, specifically in yachting. So once the system has been breached, what are they actually trying to do? They can do anything once they've got the breach. The breach can be not just to steal your data, but also to gain access to your machine, to your device. They can put key clickers on there so they can track what you're sending. They can download data from your machine and use that data, or sell that data on the hidden black market as long as possible. So if you have been breached, it's not necessarily going to impact you directly. So you must be really careful if you do have click on a malicious link and you're aware of it, because one of the questions we asked a lot of people is, have you been breached? Have you had a cyber attack? A lot of people don't even know. They don't even know that the device has been breached in the first place. Even now, if you've got a laptop, it could still be breached. It could still have malicious software on there unless you've got the right tools to look for it and ensure that it's clean. Because cybersecurity in the yachting world, like in all of the maritime world, is a little bit in an immature position. And we've got a long way to go in terms of moving forward. And hopefully some of this is trying to educate you as to where we can get to. So I'm going to go through a little attack scenario to show how vulnerable you are, because it's not all about you. So in this scenario, it's pretty straightforward. We've got a crew member or a guest or even an engineer who comes on board to fix something, but he's effectively he has a device. That device is compromised. It's compromised through lots of different ways. He's maybe downloaded some dodgy content because he's going to be on the yacht for 3 or 4 months, and he wants a load of videos, and he's not prepared to pay for them, so he's going to get them from one of the share sites. It could be that his Facebook has been compromised, or Instagram, or whatever. We've even seen Inmarsat C-sent type spams. So be really, really careful about that device, because when it comes on board, that device will connect to a network that is on board the vessel. The first thing that device is now that's compromised, the first big thing that the software will do is try and compromise as much else as it possibly can. That means it will try and reside itself on other devices, other PCs, other servers, sometimes in a router, sometimes in some OT, operational technology that Svante talked about, engine monitoring systems, the Azipod monitoring system, all that. It tries across the network to infect as much as it possibly can. And then if anybody else connects to that network, it tries to infect that device. It may not even have exposed itself as being malware. It can wait for 4-5 months before it does anything. It can extract personal details, credit card numbers, passport scans, anything like that. It can look for, and it can send them back to whoever is in control of that device. That malware on your device. So don't think this is all of a sudden in your face and then it's just about you. This is a little bit like where we are today in terms of social distancing. You've also got to protect everybody else in the way that you move forward. So This is the scenario I wanted to put to you. Please be careful yourselves, but also be careful about what you connect to, and make sure that you have good software on your device to protect the vessel, because you're the yacht itself, because if anybody comes on there connect, you want to keep them clean, and you also want to know if somebody comes on there with a device that is going to potentially infect somebody else's devices or compromise the vessel, and also look after your own devices. So in terms of wrapping this up, I've got some key takeaways. The first one is obviously arrange training for your crew, how to recognize spam. And have you ever clicked on a spam email? 55% said yes, they have. And 10% said don't know. And that's probably higher than that, to be quite honest. I think more people don't know. But thank you very much for filling out that poll. Arrange training for your crew, because I've just gone through a very, very simple scenario. This is happening in the real world. Be very, very careful about it, especially at the moment with COVID. And in the future, there'll be other hacks. Whenever there is something big in the public domain, they will use that because it takes interest for people to want to go, oh yeah, I'd like a bit of that. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Tell me about that. So be very, very careful if somebody's enticing you with something like that. Use endpoint security to protect the device on the network. There are a number of them out there. Inmarsat has one ourselves, but use the endpoint, because that's going to protect where the data resides. That's where the personal information resides. That's where you create that piece of data. Use that endpoint security. On the yacht itself, you need to have something capable to scan the network. All the incoming traffic, whether that's over an Inmarsat system, an Iridium system, a VSAT system, your Wi-Fi in the port, your LTE, 4G networks or whatever, data is going backwards and forwards. Have something to scan that coming in and out, because at some point it has to get into your to your vessel, either through that link or through some media, such as a USB stick, a CD, or media carried on a device, such as a laptop. And then employ remote third-party monitoring to detect cyber threats and respond in a timely manner. This, again, is mainly for the captains of this world, the ETOs, or whoever is looking after the cybersecurity on board the vessel. But you really want to make sure that your vessel is clean. And without some tools to help you do that, and if you are going to follow the IMO guidelines that Svante talked about, then you do need those tools to show which assets you've got and how you're protecting those assets. Have something there, and use, if you haven't got cybersecurity within the corporate network around the yacht, get somebody to help you with that, because when it goes wrong, you will need some assistance. And in the yachting world, we know what that's like. You need to get it up and running as fast as you possibly can. Yes, look at the risks, look at what you can mitigate, look at how you would operate without those assets if you did lose them. So you need to have a good contingency plan, but also put some tools in place to do that, and work with a third party so that you can get the vessel back up and running as fast as you possibly can, because there is nothing in this world that will give you 100% security, whether that's physical security or whether it's cyber security. You can never have 100%. If somebody wants to hack a device and they have the time and resources to do it, they probably can. So please take some of these measures. It's a very pragmatic approach. It doesn't have to cost the world to do, but if we all do this, we'll move from an immature position to a mature position quite quickly. And on that point, I would like to leave it at that. Oh no, do you want to do questions and answers?
Yes, there's a few things in the chat. I'm going to stop your slide presentation. Svante, would you mind coming back to us as well? Yes, here we are.
Sure.
Hey, well, thank you. So, good timing, gentlemen. We're just only 40 minutes over time so far, so well organized. I'm just running through the chat and seeing a few things. I'm not mentioning, it's like someone says, giving our typical budgets on board, we're shockingly behind on cybersecurity as an industry. Scary, really. I think that's what you guys are trying to say as well, right? It's something that needs to be looked at. As Svante, you said, they still have time, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen Thomas, hi Peter, long time since Southampton. Okay, he's still in Padalia, bro. He says. So David says hi to you.
I shall reach out to Stephen after this. Good stuff.
Good. Mira is saying that her dad got called supposedly from Microsoft, being told that there's a virus on her laptop, and they call him to help avoid damage. That's something that happens a lot as well, right, gentlemen? Anything you want to say on that?
Most definitely. The reality is that they will exploit something that they possibly can, and Microsoft is so prolific that they will either phone spam, or they will send you a link, and it's very easy to fall for that. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Maybe I can add on that. I mean, these people are professionals. Huh? They work on this every day. So even these people that are calling you can be very persuasive. Huh? Just like Peter was saying with these emails, there can be details in there, and they can be really friendly and playing on your. We as people tend to want to cooperate with other people. We tend to want to help them, and if you have someone in the other line really playing on these things in your personality, they can convince you quite easily, and it is a risk, definitely.
Great. I got two great questions from Michela. He says, when I receive spam email, I usually just delete it. Is that good, or should I do differently, inform someone? I think you mentioned that as well, Peter.
Yeah. So if you are receiving spam email, that means obviously you've been compromised at some point. Where it's supposed to be coming from, it's well worth informing them. So if, for example, you've got a spam from a bank or from Mr. Microsoft, there is ways to report that and say, this is spam, and that's the better way in terms of protecting the wider community. Obviously, for your own machine, if your spam filter's getting it because it's pretty poor, then delete it off your machine. You don't want it on your machine. You want to get rid of it for sure. But I would take further action if you possibly could.
Great. Anything you want to add to that, Svante?
No, just good answer.
Well, I'm happy you guys agree because you're the specialists. This is it's a bit longer also from Michaela. He said, at times after talking with someone about a subject for a bit, I receive on my phone ads regarding that specific subject. He said, I never Googled anything related to the subject before. How is that got to do with cybersecurity? Could this possibly become a serious threat for the yachts? Is his device compromised? I think his question.
No, he's not. His device is not compromised.
No, it's a great question then.
It is a great question, and the analytics that are employed by the social media people are tremendous, to be quite honest. The power that's in their artificial intelligence, and the way that they are effectively tracking us and the likes. In your Facebook, if you signed up for Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, there was a thing called terms and conditions. Everybody just clicked it. It basically said, I'll give everything and anything to anybody. It is awful. I do have a Facebook account, and they use that. Even someone like Google, if you go to an airport now, obviously Wi-Fi is free. Why is Wi-Fi free? Because you connect to a Wi-Fi unit. That Wi-Fi unit is in a certain area. That area is close to a shop, or in a shop, for example. So if you went into Nike, you went onto the Wi-Fi unit in Nike. It knows you went to Nike. You will get something from Nike saying these are the shoes, or whatever. Da 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 da. They are, the power that they are using in terms of their outreach is extremely powerful. And yes, you will get this. The only way that you can get around it is take your filters in whatever it is to the highest level. Mm-hmm. And also in some cases you may have to say, I don't want to be part of this social media platform.
Oh, that's tough in COVID-19 times. I think social media gets us through COVID-19. Tom is saying, it's amazing how much both documents are stored on personal laptop as computers provided. And they are usually ancient and have poor CMSs. So I think you will all agree that that's a risk that's around there. And then last question, I think it's a great question to end this webinar with. Stephen is asking, so what's a realistic budget? capital and annual outlay. Assume a 40-meter yacht with 10 crew and up to 25 guests on board. Parties dockside, etc. 50+ devices, say. What I'll let both of you answer this quickly if you want to.
I mean, yeah, everybody needs to have an idea, but it's not so much the size of the vessel, it's not the number of guests, it's what is the technology you're employing on board the vessel. So in the case of this, a 40-meter yacht with 10 crew and 25 guests on board, if you've only got a small local area network with one Wi-Fi point and 2 PCs and nothing else is connected, then your budget is going to be very, very small. If you have got a 40-meter yacht with a lot of automation or operational technology connected, a lot of IT connected, so you're doing a lot in the cloud, you're doing a lot shoreside maintenance, etc., all those kind of things, then your budget will be higher. But what I've said is, let's take a pragmatic approach. You can't flick a switch, and don't throw thousands of dollars at this or hundreds of thousands of dollars at this to try and fix it. Take the pragmatic approach. That's first thing is train your crew, train all your people, make sure that they've got some awareness. And like you do with a lifeboat or a firefighting, do some drills. Do some testing just to get people aware of what's going on in terms of cybersecurity. That doesn't cost a lot of money. Cybersecurity training courses are cheap, and there's lots of them out there. The next thing is learn what your assets are. What are the assets on the vessel? What is connected? Because some people don't even know what is connected. What is connected, and what would you do if you lost it? If it got compromised, how do you operate? And then you've now got some idea of how you want to move forward. I would say, yes, always protect the endpoints with something like an endpoint proposition. They are in the market for, Inmarsat, I'll quote, is $75 a month that would look after this kind of vessel. It's not a lot of money. There are others out there. I will say that because I don't want to be Inmarsat focused. That will protect the infrastructure and the endpoints. So you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you do need to do some work, and you need to look at it. And if you do that work and create an awareness around all the people that are there, you will build on that, and you will come from a position that's very vulnerable to one that's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then really, it does depend on what are those guests got on board their computers, what kind of guest it is, all that kind of thing, how they want to operate, as to the level you want to take your cybersecurity. And unfortunately, we are in this position, and every industry is in this position, where cybersecurity was not thought of right at the day of implementation. So if you're building a new 40-meter yacht, then yes, you can really take some good things and into consideration. And then the cost of cybersecurity, because it's not an add-on, is easy to put in terms of I'm going to, this is the way it's going to operate. Unfortunately, now we're looking at cybersecurity as an add-on. It's seen as an additional cost, but it's the cost of having that IT or that OT. If you want to put a computer on board a vessel, or if you want a computer in your house and connect it, you need to keep it safe. It's part of putting a computer into the system. So I'm saying take a pragmatic approach, start at it, don't throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at it, and you can move forward. Yep. Knowing what the risk is.
Anything you want to add, Svante?
No, I think, Peter, you put it to the point. As I said before as well in my presentation, key is to have an inventory. Key is to understand what are the devices that I need to protect, and then to understand how much protection do I actually want as well, because it's up to you. It's your risks. You need to determine if this is how critical this is for you to operate, and you can always improve even more. You can always make it basically until the point that you cannot use the system. That's high security you could potentially implement, but then the system is useless to you. So you need to find this balance and be sure. Training, for sure, it's easy, it's cheap, it makes sense. There are tons of it, and continuously execute that kind of training as well. I agree. And then build on it, as I said, this continuous improvement is key. The more we have to look at this as a marathon race and not like a sprint. Don't just implement a lot of get one budget for this year and then you say to your management you don't need any money for next year, but rather have the long-term approach and then invest more and more into the weak areas. Basically, learn from your mistakes and improve where you have weaknesses. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. There's 2 more files that I'm now sharing, so you will land in your chat with some more information. I'm sharing both those files. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Svante, for this great session. Rocco says, thank you, PT Pops, great talk. I don't know. There's too many.
Oh dear.
Svante's getting the serious reactions, to be honest. I think everybody's, thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you so much for being here. Please leave any notes in there. This webinar has been recorded, so we will post it later. And because I know a lot of people wanted to attend as well, who are basically, they are working and they are on the vessels because not everybody is off. And so it's good to have this done. Again, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Svante. It's great to have DNV GL and Inmarsat working together on this great topic. And as Christian says, very interesting. Thank you. Annette is thanking you. Tom is saying great webinar as always. And so I'm saying bye-bye and hope to see you in the flesh soon. And everybody stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe and change your password.
Thank you. Thank you, password.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.